Hey, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to the How to Write an eOrganic Article course. This is Alice Formiga and I'm the director of eOrganic, and I'd like to welcome you today. And this course is intended for students. I know not everybody on the class is a student, but it will help students prepare to submit an entry to one of the 2 student article competitions that we're going to be running in 2020. The 5 winners of each competition will be awarded domestic travel funds and registration to attend a professional society meeting, either the American Society for Horticultural Science Conference or the Tri-Societies Conference. So it's a great opportunity. We've been doing this now for 2 years, and we've had some excellent feedback from our student winners. This course will include 4 webinars, which are being recorded. But those who attend the live course will receive feedback on their articles and their topics, and the goal is for you to have either a finished or an almost finished article ready for submission to either competition when we put out our call for papers in mid-November. In this class, I'm going to give a short introduction to what eOrganic is and what an eOrganic article is not and what it is. And then we're going to just go through a couple of different examples and take a very short and ungraded quiz so that you will be well equipped to pick a good topic and figure out how to focus it. These webinars will be taught by me and by my colleagues, Alex Stone and Javier Fernandez Salvador of Oregon State University, and Annette Wisilaki from the University of Tennessee. And each of us will be leading different sections. So I'm just going to move on quickly to introduce what eOrganic is. eOrganic was envisioned in 2007 by a group of organic researchers and extension agents, along with some collaborating farmers, as an online community where reliable science-based information on organic farming would be shared. Many of the people on this slide contributed ideas and articles for our launch, and I just want to mention some of our initial leaders: Alex Stone, Michelle Wander, Jim Riddle, Mary Barberchek, Heather Darby, Danielle Treadwell, Deb Haliba, and many others. At this time, at that time, a growing number of scientists were working on organic research around the country, and they were looking at ways to do things like conserve healthy soil and manage native and invasive pests without the use of dangerous chemicals, how to balance wildlife conservation and food safety, how to manage diseases. So the idea was to create a community online using internet technology to share reliable information amongst themselves and also with the public. At the same time, there was also more and more untested information about organic farming spreading around the internet. So it was sometimes kind of a challenge to find reliable information for producers. The eOrganic founders were interested in learning what other researchers were doing and to be able to connect with other researchers who might make possible collaborators. There was also more funding for organic research available than before by that time, and many of the researchers wanted to learn about the findings of federally funded organic projects, and the USDA didn't really have a repository where the findings were really publicly available. So many researchers had published journal articles about their work, but those are not always available to the public, and they're sometimes quite hard to find. So the founders of eOrganic didn't want to just share research information, but also organic farming methods based on the experience of successful organic farmers around the country who are on the ground dealing with solving problems on their farms every day. Organic farmers were the ones who really pioneered and developed organic methods, in many cases without a great deal of support from researchers or extension in their states. And finally, the eOrganic team wanted to make sure that the information we publish is compliant with National Organic Program regulations, because we didn't want to publish anything that was going to cause anyone to lose their certification status. So eOrganic was founded as the organic agriculture community of eExtension, and eExtension, or extension.org, was a new national website in 2009 of the land-grant universities, and it was organized into topical communities, and so eOrganic became the organic agriculture community of e-extension. Until August of this year, all of the eOrganic articles appeared on the organic agriculture section of the e-extension website. E-extension is now focusing more on professional development, and in August they stopped updating their website with our articles, so we were no longer able to update our articles. And so now, instead of publishing on their site, we have our own public website that has exactly the same information, which is linked both ways to their site. So you can now find everything that we publish at eOrganic.org. So to summarize, eOrganic publishes science, experience, and regulation-based information for the public, and our primary audience includes not just researchers, but farmers, extension, government agencies, organic certifiers and inspectors, nonprofits, agricultural professionals, industry professionals, and the public. And if you publish on eOrganic, your work really reaches a large audience of people that are really actively interested in organic production. A lot of times our articles are picked up by other organic organizations and spread even more widely. And so you can kind of get an idea from this slide, the reach of eOrganic content. And many of the students who have entered our 2 previous competitions and had their work published said that they've gotten contacted from people, including farmers around the country that are interested in the work that they're doing, and they've been really happy to have that article to be able to just point people to it. And I think it just really can create some interesting opportunities and collaborations. So moving on to how you can write an eOrganic article and what an eOrganic article is. So just to kind of repeat everything again, our information is based on science, experience of farmers, of successful farmers, and compliant with organic regulations. And this just goes over the eOrganic audience, which is pretty much what I already said. But we're moving on now to what an eOrganic article is not, because I think that's going to be a helpful way to lead into what an eOrganic article is. So as I mentioned, eOrganic was envisioned as a place for information sharing among different people who might need reliable organic information, not just scientists. So in other words, we don't want to be the same thing as a scientific journal. There are plenty of scientific journals, and they contain articles that are often in a very specific format: introduction, methodology, results, discussion, and a short conclusion. And this is great if your primary purpose is having a methodical way to describe an experiment. Scientific journal articles are usually written for other scientists because they assume knowledge of scientific terms and statistics, and they're often full of specialized jargon and complicated graphs and diagrams that are not something that non-scientist readers would necessarily be interested in understanding, even if the experiment is really interesting. So sometimes scientific journal articles have photos as illustrations, but not always, and they don't necessarily contain any how-to information. In journal articles, the focus is on describing experiments rather than how to do things on the farm. So we don't want to be the same thing as a journal article. One of the things that I do for eOrganic is run webinars, and our audience is about 30% farmers. And just over time, I've learned to prepare researchers to present to our audience to avoid frustration and embarrassment if a farmer asks a question that for a farmer is a really basic, simple question, but the researcher might not have had to think about that in his or her work. So many of the researchers are not used to talking to a farmer audience because they might not have an extension appointment and they don't necessarily work directly with farmers. So they aren't necessarily used to the practical types of questions that they ask. So for example, when a researcher is talking about a new pest control technique that they've been working on, farmers will definitely want to know how to apply it, with what machinery, and the answers to things like how much does something cost? Is it even commercially available? And where can I find it? Is it permitted under organic certification, or when will it be? Is it something that works in my region of the country? Is it something that works on some other insect or weed or disease, or does it only work on that one thing? Farmers and people who advise farmers, like organic inspectors or certifiers or government agency staff or extension agents or people in industry, want to know how to solve the problems on the farm. And while that might be the ultimate goal of the scientific researcher as well, the researchers tend to be focused more on the details of their work rather than these practical questions. And so researchers are often quite grateful to have tips on what our audience asks so that they feel better prepared to deal with these questions and not kind of feel stumped on the spot with a whole bunch of people listening. So while in a journal, it's important to describe the study methodology in great detail and show detailed results, it's much more important for our audience to have understandable take-home information that they can use. So I don't mean at all that the article should be something that you should think of as dumbed down for the audience, but instead you're tailoring the article for your often very knowledgeable and experienced audience who just speak a different language because they're not scientists and they want to learn about your work. So it's a very good exercise to be able to translate your research into something that's understandable to other people. So another thing that we don't want to do is to recycle conventional production information and just leave out the substances that are not permitted in organic production. So we have gotten some submissions like that, which were pretty much information from a conventional textbook with a few chemicals taken out. And so, as you know, organic production involves a lot more than just not using conventional products. We really want to add value with our articles, and it makes the article a lot richer and more interesting to have organic specific methods described and examples that work. And so that would help the broader goals of organic farming, increasing soil and environmental and human health. So to summarize, we don't want to just say what you can't do, but we want to say what you can do and what other people have done to be successful. So after all that, what should an eOrganic article be like? So when eOrganic started, we wanted to publish the most current, reliable information on things like the types of equipment that organic farmers use for weed control, what can be done about invasive pests, how to recognize and control diseases on tomatoes, how to graft tomatoes, how to build a greenhouse cheaply. We wanted to have authors who could look at the body of information on a topic, summarize it, and extrapolate the useful information. So how can you, as a student, do that when you're just working on a research project? I don't mean to say that you can't talk about an experiment at all, but instead of emphasizing the methodology and results, the emphasis should be on placing the topic in context and summarizing those findings of the project that would be most useful for producers and people who advise producers. So sometimes it can be a challenge for researchers to write up extension materials or eOrganic articles on their projects when they haven't yet found out all the results. But there's also the need on most grants to publish something each year for annual reporting. So one way to deal with that is to focus on particular aspects of a project about which people already have a lot of knowledge and information, but about which there isn't really a great deal of published information, and to write about that. Another way to approach it is to find something that's relevant to the project that there's not a lot of information on and expand on that. For example, there's no one complete book about organic farming in the Southeast, which is very challenging to do, and there's a lot of regional variability. So if your project is, say, related to organic farming in Florida, and there's a particular pest that you've learned a lot about how to control in that region in the course of your research, or maybe visiting farms, you've seen some innovative ways to do that, that might be a great thing to summarize and describe. So what you write about for eOrganic doesn't have to exactly match the particular project that you're working on. It can be related to that project, or you're certainly welcome to write about a topic that interests you that's not directly about your own research. One of our winners from this past year, 2019, at the ASHS competition that we ran, Anthony Whaley of Utah State University, wrote about a topic that his supervising professor and some other people at his institution had done research on, which was orchard floor management. And he had not been on that project directly, but he was interested in the topic, and he was able to summarize the information that would be particularly useful for organic farmers. And he won the contest. He was one of our 5, well, actually this year it was 3 winners. The year before it was 5, and he attended the ASHS conference this year. It's also great to include any examples from actual organic farms. Many organic research projects work together with farmers, either directly or do on-farm trials, for example. Farmers are innovators, and they often have the most creative approaches to problem solving because that's what they need to do. And I know some of you travel to farms and collect data, so if you work on farms doing research and can get permission from the farmer to maybe use a photo or a brief video that demonstrates a particular technique as part of your article, or if there's something really interesting and successful that they're doing to deal with a particular challenge, you could write about that. So the basic idea is that we want articles that include practical information on certified organic farming based on the best knowledge available. So doing this, writing for a farmer and a general audience requires a mindset more of an extension agent rather than a research scientist solely. So while a very important part of actual extension work is visiting farmers and holding demonstrations, eOrganic is focused on online publications. So we definitely don't think that online information is anything like a substitute for in-person events, which not only allow people to share information amongst themselves, but also to get to know each other and feel comfortable together, which in turn often leads to more connections and information sharing. But many farmers and others have computers, and the percentage of organic farmers with computers may actually be higher, according to a couple of surveys, than that of farmers in general, which is also getting much higher. And according to one study, I think it was as early as 2004, about 78% of organic farmers had access to computers, and we have had thousands of farmers attend our webinars, and many farmers use computers to find information quickly. So online information is also valuable, especially for those who can't, for one reason or another, easily travel to in-person events or leave their farms. We often hear from farmers who are glad to have had the opportunity to learn about something that they would have otherwise had to travel for. There is surprisingly little literature on how to write a good agriculture extension bulletin for farmer audiences. Most of what there is talks about good writing in general, like writing clearly or writing in the active voice, but there isn't a great deal in the way of instructions or models or templates or guidelines on how to write such an article based on what farmers really want to know. However, there have been a couple of audience studies of farmers, and the ones that I found that farmers value information that will help to reduce risk, save time and money, explain how to apply research in organic systems, describe proven, current, relevant methods to their regions, overcome barriers to certification, provide marketing, production, and environmental information, and give clear information on regulations and how to comply. And one thing that many surveys show is that farmers really like learning from other farmers. So that's why, again, it's a great idea to provide some farm examples. So in case you're feeling a little bit lost and don't know where to begin, the good news is that eOrganic has a great many articles like what I'm talking about that you can look at to get ideas. And we really do want you to look through our website and find out what we already have published so that you can get an idea of what it's like. And also because we want you to submit new articles about original topics that we don't already have good articles on. And this way your article will add to and complement our existing body of information instead of repeating what's already there. So it's very important for you to have a good look through the eOrganic website before you start to make sure that you're choosing an original topic. So let's look through a couple of examples of different article types. So this type of article finds and organizes credible science-based pest biology and organic management information, or shows how to do something or how to make something or how to solve a problem on organic farm. This article was written by Bill Snyder, who was at the time at Washington State. Now he's in Georgia, and he's an entomologist who at the time was studying beneficial insects. And this article talks about how to control cucumber beetles, which are a very, very difficult pest on organic farms. And this article has been very well read by many, many people. It's one of our most popular articles. So another article that helps to solve problems on the farm is this one, which is based on organic alternatives to fire blight. What I mean by alternatives is alternatives to antibiotics to control fire blight in orchards in the western US. So this article developed and evaluated management plans for this disease. So it's another really good example. It was based on a research project and summarizes all the findings. This article is another very popular article. It talks about organic management of late blight with copper products. It's by Alex Stone and Brian Baker. And another type of article that we have describes new technology. This one is on abrasive weeding, which is kind of like sandblasting weeds. And Sam Wortman of the University of Nebraska-Lincoln led a study which explored different ways to do this and different types of grits to spray weeds with. And the results of this project and an introduction to this technique are available in an article here. Here's another one that describes some technology. This was one of our student winners from 2 years ago, solarization and tarping for weed management on organic vegetable farms in the Northeast. This is by Sonia Berthasell of the University of Maine. Another student winner, also describing a new technology, is this one from David Campbell of the University of Florida on how to use paper bags to protect organic peaches from insect and diseases. And the project developed a new type of paper bag with an attached twist tie. And apparently many more of these bags have been ordered. And we don't know that this was a result of having the article online, but it certainly didn't hurt to have the article online, and the author said that he's also been contacted by people about this. So another thing that you can do on an eOrganic article is to summarize the findings of a project in a way that is clear and understandable for a general audience. This project is on spotted wing Drosophila, which is an invasive pest. They have a website which eOrganic hosts, which you can find on our website under projects. You can see some websites that we host for this and other projects. And this article summarizes the most current findings on organic methods to control this pest, and this is an ongoing project, so we'll be posting updates. I'm sure the project will be doing another webinar this year on the latest developments. So another project another article which is based on a research project was this one by Bernadine Strick of Oregon State University on organic blueberry production. This article very nicely summarizes the findings. And this article summarizes just one aspect of a larger research project. This one was a project on value-added grains, and they didn't write an article that summarized all the findings of their project, but they focused on this, which there isn't a great deal of information on, which is how to dehull ancient grains. And the author looked at different types of machinery for doing that. Another type of eOrganic article is how people can comply with a regulation, such as this one, which is the Organic Dairy Pasture Rule. And this is an organic regulation, and there was some confusion as to how farmers can go about complying with this regulation. And so the authors of this article wrote a series of short articles which helps farmers figure out how they can comply with the pasture rule. Very helpful. And this one here is another type of article. This was developed by Alex Stone of Oregon State University, and she, as part of a research project, conducted some case studies that are quite detailed, actually, of different long-term organic farms that have been successful, and talk about how their diseases and soil health changed over time. And she actually uses these case studies in classes here at Oregon State University in our organic farming certification program. So that's kind of a summary here of the different types of articles that we have. And When you're ready, when you have a topic and you're ready to get going in terms of actually writing your article, I really want to point you to the eOrganic instructions for authors. And in order to find those, you can just Google eOrganic instructions for authors, or you can copy this link here. I strongly encourage everyone to read the instructions for authors before you get started, because it kind of summarizes a few of the main points that I've been talking about and gives you some basic guidelines for formatting. One thing that I would definitely suggest is to have someone edit your article. If you have co-authors listed in the article, they need to look at and contribute to or edit the article. Many students will just put their supervising professor at the end of the article author list without actually having that professor read it. So no matter how well you write, it's always a good idea to have several more sets of eyes read your work. Make sure your spelling is correct and the grammar is correct. Use the spell and grammar check in your word processing program, and also show it to someone else who can help you edit. We can't send it to reviewers unless we feel confident that it is really something publishable. You can submit your article in Microsoft Word to us, but if you want to use the formatting on the eOrganic website, if you're comfortable with formatting on the web, you're certainly welcome to join eOrganic.info, which is our community website, and format it there. We have instructions which are linked to the instructions for authors for doing that. You will not be penalized for doing it simply in Word. Whatever you want to do is fine. Pictures are always a really good idea. It keeps an article more interesting and less boring, like this slide, and often a good picture can show something much more clearly than describing it in words. As in any publication, you need to have permission to use the pictures from the photographer and credit them correctly. And if you show a person close up, it's also important to get permission from that person to use the photograph of them. The other thing that you'll find in the instructions for authors is the disclaimer that we put in for materials. For example, if you recommend a particular pest control product in your article, we always include this disclaimer for people to check with their certifier to make sure that it's part of their organic systems plan and that it's permitted by their certifier and that it's also permissible under their state pesticide rules and things like that, because we certainly don't want to recommend anything to people that might put them in some sort of legal jeopardy.